G'day YouTube, Max right here, and got another great video for you. So Peter Schiff and I are having a little bit of back and forth on YouTube. You may be following here. If you're not, please subscribe. We're talking about Bitcoin versus gold, and I think we're covering a lot of ground, having a really good debate. Hopefully we'll be doing an in-person video here soon, a live chat. Please email Peter and let him know, or that you'd love to see that. I think there is so much interest in Bitcoin, so much interest in gold, people would love to hear what we both have to say. I think if we promoted this, I think in about a week we could get 100,000 people live watching a Schiff, Max Wright, Bitcoin gold debate on YouTube. So Peter, when you watch this, I think you will. I think there's a great opportunity for us to both get the word out here and hear our points of view. But if you think that's a good idea, please let Peter know on his Twitter, on his YouTube, etc. So he made a couple of different comments here, quite a long one and then this shorter one. I'll start here and then we'll do that. Just before I do that, I want to give you a heads up on the next video that will be coming up. So we're going to be talking all about the Carnival Cruise bail-in. I really want to package this up nice and neat, something that you can forward to a lot of people to explain just how horrific this transfer of wealth from the poor and middle class is to the wealthy. It's critically important that we educate people that bail-ins hurt the poor, help the rich, and that's why they're used all the time. The poor and middle class and the masses have to rise up and say no more bailouts. It's critically important. So please subscribe, hit that bell, and please, if you want to, subscribe to follow this conversation between Peter and I think it'll definitely be worth it. And yeah, thanks for your likes and all the good stuff. So, moving on. Victoria Jones wrote in response to this video right here that I have on YouTube, where's the intrinsic value of fiat currency that has stopped the world operating, sorry, I'm reading that as if there was no question mark there. Where's the intrinsic value in fiat currency? That hasn't stopped the world operating on fiat for the last 100 years. Peter Schiff's response, there is none. That is why fiat currencies ultimately fail. But it will last longer than Bitcoin as legal tender status, tradition, and the need to pay taxes provides a temporary substitute for intrinsic value. So yeah, I would like to add a little bit more detail to this, but basically I agree with Peter with the exception of the comparison to Bitcoin. The reason fiat has currency is the invisible gun of the state. The reason fiat has value is the invisible gun of the state. Meaning, if you don't pay your taxes in these pieces of paper, we will send men with guns to kidnap you and put you in a cage, as did happen to Peter's father. So you have to go and hunt for these pieces of paper in order to pay your overlords. That's the value of fiat currency, and Peter's right, they all collapse, they always do, and so we expect this one to as well. But his bigger response, so this is actually in two parts because it didn't all fit on the screen, so I'll do it in two sections. Try giving your girlfriend a necklace made of coal. That's a little bit of a straw man there, that's something I said on the video, but taken out of context. I'll skip past that one. Gold is much better as jewelry. Not only is it beautiful and malleable enough to be fashioned into all kinds of jewelry, but it does not tarnish or corrode. You can swim with it, but you're missing the point. Money replaced barter. So instead of the farmer giving the baker eggs for his bread, he gives him gold. The gold is a commodity just like eggs, which the baker can in turn give to the butcher for meat, instead of giving him bread, which the butcher may not want. Perhaps he's on a low-carb diet. But gold is a luxury good that will always be in demand. I think the word luxury there is superfluous. I don't think a luxury good is a special kind of good that Peter's drawing our attention to there. So I'm just going to guess that gold is a good that will always be in demand. As its value will not decay over time, you can save it until you want to trade it for something else. Unlike gold, eggs, milk, or meat, Bitcoin is not a valuable commodity. Okay. So we're starting off with this intrinsic value argument. What is intrinsic value? I think, should I get the opportunity to debate Peter? I think where the entire conversation is going to lie, with regards to this point, I have two primary points there that I made in that video that are mutually exclusive. Either one of them need to be correct in order for, I would argue, for Peter to concede and say that Bitcoin has value and etc. Either one of the points needs to be correct. The first is an intrinsic value. And what the concept is, what does it mean? Does it need to have intrinsic value before it is used as money? So, first of all, what you're saying here that Bitcoin, because it is pretty, because it's fashionable, malleable, and doesn't tarnish or corrode, People like to wear it, and therefore it had a commodity value as jewelry first. Then, because it was jewelry, then and only then can it be used as money. Because it's so good at money, now it's actually used more for money than as a commodity. It is jewelry form. I think about 60% of the world's gold is used in bullion, coins, bars, etc., and a minority is used as jewelry now. But Peter's claim is that first it was jewelry, and now it's the majority of it is used as bullion. Okay, I think this is completely wrong. For starters, fashion trends don't last for 5,000 years. Fashion trends last for about 30 years. What lasts forever is people liking to display their wealth. If you lived in a tribal society, you didn't wear gold. It wasn't until civilization came along that we started using gold as jewelry. In tribal societies, we wore feathers, hides, to display our hunting prowess, to display our power and status in society. We would wear those kinds of trinkets, bones, feathers, those kinds of things. It was only once it was being used as money, now we start wearing gold as jewelry, because people like to display their wealth and power and status through their fashion. Helps them get the ladies. So my argument, this flips a lot of economic thought on its head. I believe gold is fashionable and used as jewelry because it is money. Peter's claim is that it was a fashion item first, and therefore it can be used as money. I believe that's right. I just want to clarify that for everybody out there. So, a debate with Peter's going to come back to, he's going to have to define intrinsic value for me. What is intrinsic value? Because I don't believe he is going to be able to come up with a definition of intrinsic value that Bitcoin does not meet. Let me run through a few examples, guessing at what he might say to that. What could his definition be? If his definition for intrinsic value is someone uses it for something other than currency, well, we have that with Bitcoin. We have it. Bitcoin is a record that will last forever in the cloud. Hundreds of thousands of people have copies of this ledger all over the world. And inside we call them transactions, you can encode lots of information. There are newspaper clippings encoded in there, marriage certificates, proof of ownership, communication. You can have a conversation in the Bitcoin blockchain, and you can do it through this irrefutable, immutable ledger that exists on the blockchain that cannot be changed, and it cannot alter history. So it's kind of like, it's like the New York Times is like the record of fact. What do they call it? The record of fact? I forget the tagline for the New York Times. Whatever it is. Bitcoin is actually really that. So you could also prove that you were the one who signed the contract. In the instance of the marriage certificate, someone put the marriage certificate on the blockchain, and then 10 years from now, if anyone comes back and says, no, that marriage was coerced or that wasn't real, somebody else said that those two people were married but were not, you can come along and show and demonstrate through the use of your private key that actually, no, I hold the private key, I was the one who put that transaction on the blockchain and the marriage certificate on there. It is valid, it is there. So you can timestamp things in history. People are using the blockchain for all kinds of things. And this is just the Bitcoin blockchain, by the way. They are using it for a whole bunch of things outside of money. So we've met the standard of the standard that I first posited, which was it has to be used for something outside of money. It's already doing that. Bitcoin is Bitcoin is so good as money that now it's not just 60% of people, like in the fact of gold, 60% of people use it as money and 40% still use it as jewelry. Now in the current state, 99% of people use Bitcoin as currency because it is such a good currency. You can't punish it or claim it's not a currency because so many people use it as money. That doesn't make sense. And it is something that can change over time. For example, I've already argued that we like to wear our status. We like to demonstrate our status, things like that. In an increasingly digital world, and there are things like Second Life and whole online communities, online profiles and things like that, whereby your reputation, the entire social media experiment, your reputation matters. What if you could demonstrate your status by having your provable Bitcoin balance inside your profile? Now, as it stands now, the people who are really into Bitcoin like their privacy, and it's one of the main features of it, so they wouldn't be likely to do that. But as this filters down to Joe Schmo, and you can be a big swinging guy walking around Second Life getting all the ladies because you got 10,000 Bitcoins in your wallet that's written next to your name, that's you wearing your status. This is powerful stuff. The electronic digital currencies of all forms can be used to display your status online. It is possible that Bitcoin's fashion component might go up significantly. So that's a fun thing to think about in the future. Okay, but back to the original point, back to Peter's claim. If the definition of intrinsic value is that people are using it for things that's got nothing to do with currency, then Bitcoin meets the standard. The only way I can see that Peter can avoid this and Peter's arguments to date have been very black and white. Gold has intrinsic value, Bitcoin does not have intrinsic value. Both of those statements are objective, and they're there for everyone to see. Bitcoin fails the test. As soon as you realize the fact, and maybe Peter's just never heard of this, that people are using the Bitcoin blockchain for things outside of currency, then the only way to get around that definition is to say, well, it's such a small percentage of people, it's near insignificant. It doesn't matter, it's meaningless. But to do that, you immediately walk away from your black and white argument, because now you have to come up with a number. What's the number of people that have to use it as a commodity in order for it to satisfy the intrinsic value definition? You're just going to arbitrarily choose a number between Bitcoin's 1% and gold's 40%? You say, well, I'm just going to pick a number, 10%. I think if it's less than 10% used as commodity, then it can't be currency. That's just arbitrary. You're immediately out of the objective black and white world and into the subjective world. And the whole argument falls apart. You can hide behind it, but intellectually it has no strength because you're into this subjective world. So I challenge Peter to come up with a definition of intrinsic value that Bitcoin doesn't meet and is objective. Okay, I think that's kind of it for Peter and I. And again, I'd love to have this conversation with him in person. I think we cover a lot of ground really fast, and I think you guys would love it. So let us know in the comments. Let Peter know on his Twitter that you want that, if you want that to happen. Oh, there's part two. I'm sorry, there's part two of Peter's thing. I completely forgot about it. So talking about Bitcoin, it has no value of its own. There is no reason to accept it in trade. Yep, I think I've argued that. Gold has a historic relationship to other commodities, so the market can set prices. That sentence has no meaning to me at all. I don't know what that means. It has a historic relationship to other commodities. So you can't say that Bitcoin needed to have some intrinsic value before it was money in commodities. Well, no, okay. Okay, it's more the 5,000 year argument. You can't say, because Bitcoin has 5,000 years of history of being valued as money and used as money and having value. What you can say is that it's with reasonable good certainty that gold will have value, like it's going to have value. What you cannot say is that something with a short lifespan thus far, like Bitcoin, is because it does not have the historic relationship with things, cannot have value yet. Because if you go back, Peter's argument in and of itself is 4,990 years ago, before it was used as money, when it was just used as fashion, it still had a relationship there. So although the history of Bitcoin is short, we've got things that are a little bit longer. We've got URLs, google.com. What is that worth? Billions of dollars. You've got these URLs that are just air. You've got air rights in New York. You've got all these intangibles that as the technology develops, as our legal system develops, as things develop, there's things that have had value for 30 years, things that have had value for 50 years, things that have had value for 100 years. Gold's fantastic. I'm a huge gold bug. It's been around for 5,000 years. But you can't use it as an argument that a Bitcoin will never have does not possess the magic je ne sais quoi of intrinsic value because it has a short history of doing so. It does have a history. It has a history with all the different fiat currencies, has a difference with lots of things, because you can trade your Bitcoin for other stuff. It's a short history, but it has a history. And whether or not something has a history has got nothing to do with setting market prices. That is complete and utter nonsense, that part of that sentence. The market sets prices based on supply and demand. That's a centrally planned economy where you look at the historic value of something and guess what its value might be today. So historic value has nothing to do with market prices. Bitcoin has no relationship to anything, as it has no use as a commodity. It does, just not to you. To plenty of other people, it does. So there is no way to establish a true market price. Complete nonsense. Historic relationship has zero to do with market price. It's, again, Google.com has had no historic value. None. 40 years ago, whenever URLs were invented. 30 years ago, it had none. Now they're worth billions. Are you suggesting that Google.com has no value today and does not possess some intrinsic value? It does. The moment you have it, you can trade it for something, you've got your historic reference, and bang, the pricing system is off to the races, and the forces start working, and over time, it gets less and less volatile, and we come closer to a price. It's exactly what Bitcoin is doing. Its value is 100% derived from speculated demand that can end as quickly as it began. Complete nonsense that it is 100% derived from speculated demand. I will confess it's majority derived from speculated demand, but so is gold. 60% of people who have gold store it in bullion form, not jewelry. They use it as the commodity form. They use it for money as a store of value. And I agree with you, the vast majority of Bitcoin, a much higher percentage than 60%, use Bitcoin for the same reason they use gold. They believe it is a store of value, right? I would argue, well, maybe that may or may not be fair, but I would argue more people use currency than, Bitcoin than gold as currency. Maybe, arguably, not too many transactions, literally the purchasing of goods and services that happen in gold. Very little, especially down at the retail level, maybe between governments. Especially at the retail level, consumers choose Bitcoin over gold as a currency for sure. So that is a false statement, objectively false, that it's 100% derived from speculated demand. Okay, Peter, looking forward to hearing from you, buddy. And this is actually a question for you guys. Someone made in the comments, I'd like to urge you to, that's me, to mirror your content on other platforms such as LBRY or BitChute. Please remember that your overlords are not necessarily benign, and there's a couple of people backing that claim up, and they got 8 thumbs up, etc. Guys, I don't know much about this stuff. Can you help me out? I'm not managing. I hate social media with a passion. I don't use Facebook. I don't use Twitter. I don't use any of them. I just hate them. I'm not going to launch 2 other things. If there was a browser, I can do one thing and set it up. There's a browser plugin or something like that, and I can upload it to YouTube and it automatically sends it to the other locations. I will do that one-time thing and do it. I'm not going to do the comments, and unless if one of you guys want to work with me and do Twitter and do Facebook and all of these things, I'd be more than happy to have that discussion. Feel free to email me about that if you want to do some kind of partnership. I'm open to that concept, but yeah, I hate social media with a passion, so I'm not going to be doing all those extra things. But yeah, let me know if you want to partner with me and make those kinds of things happen. I'd very much consider that. Guys, please smash that like button for me. Love your comments. Let me know what you would like me to do future videos on. Let me know if I've missed any points with Peter. Who do you think's winning the debate so far? This is my channel, so it's a bit biased. Do you think I'm winning, or do you think Peter's winning? Please let me know in the comments. Smash that bell button. Make sure you choose to let the notifications happen. And guys, I really enjoy making videos for you. I'll see you soon.